let's talk about simple, concise, centralized navigation for a website. There's lots of different creative ways that you can create your menus for your landing page that will link to different parts of your website. And the drop down list is a very simple tool. I've got three drop down lists up here, and the first one is using a library book that I'm putting notes in, and there's 18 chapters, and each one of these links on the drop down list goes to another separate web page. So chapter 1, I have a chapter1.html web page, and I put my notes there all the way to chapter 18. So that's what this drop down list points to, various external web pages, HTML files. This one in the middle is for a web development class that I took years ago at college. And this particular professor put his lectures on YouTube, which made it nice and convenient for a lot of the students. If they missed class, they could always catch his lecture right there, as long as they had internet access. So this one again points to another website. It's YouTube. So if I click on the first lecture that he created, I don't happen to be online right now. So we have this, we can't connect a server at www.youtube.com. But when I am online, this opens that particular YouTube page up, which is nice. Now this drop down list over here is a different class I took in college, and this was for C#. This teacher gave access to MP4 files as well. So for the students that maybe didn't have access to the internet, they could access the hard copy, the MP4 file of his lectures. So here, if you create videos for whatever you may be doing, if you're doing exercise videos or videos for maybe cooking classes or whatever that you want to do, entertainment, you know, let's say you want to be a superstar into comedy. You make your little MP4 skits, and you can use a drop-down list to show them off in your iframe. So this works, and I'll click it. Now I actually have my MP4s in my folder here for the project, so I'll maybe click a different one. So you can see that it automatically pops up here, and down here I've got it set to autoplay, so I had to pause it so that it wouldn't start reading it. But drop-down lists are great because you can access so many different things, and it's easy. So there's a way to incorporate multiple drop-down lists so that they work exclusively. Otherwise, if you didn't code this correctly, you would have a difficult time getting exclusive access to only one at a time. But in any event, I'll get to the code for that. I believe that I actually did the code for a multiple drop-down list system in another video, but I will go over it again, not in this video, but maybe in the next one, if you want to use this, because it is, like I said, pretty easy. What I wanted to do besides bring up the value of using drop-down lists for navigation to centralize it and save space and all that other yada 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 is I wanted to show you how, if you enjoy being creative with your web pages, for instance doing what I did here using various background images, this shows you chapter 1's background image, and it's fixed, so you can scroll all the information that you've created, and it gives it a pretty effect. Of course, I'm also using opacity of different elements so that you can see through some elements but not see through others. So this is like a field set that has opacity, but then the legend of the field set doesn't, so you can't see through that part. Let's see, so this is for chapter 1, this is for chapter 2, and I do love photography. Let's see, what's going on? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can mix your web pages up. I've also done a video where you can put a video as a background so that you have something moving in the background on your web page as well, but I'm not going to go over that in this one. One thing that you may feel when you start putting background images, especially if you're doing information to study, you may start to feel like maybe the background's too busy, or maybe it is distracting. So you may want to whitewash your images. You may like how that effect works. So if you do want to whitewash your images, let's go in my folder called Box. I have all my images here. Some are whitewashed and some I haven't whitewashed yet. But as you can see here for Lily, Here is the original image. I'm going to wait a second for it to open up. Oh wow, that's really huge. And another thing too, I've got original file sizes here. So if you want to make your file sizes smaller, of course you would hit resize and make them smaller. But this is an original 1536 by 1536 pixels, so it's pretty big. Which, if you're going to open this up on a large monitor like a smart TV, you want to keep it at a high file size so that you don't get your pictures blurry and they're nice and crisp. But if you're only using it on a smaller system, go ahead and resize your image and knock that size down. So you can see the crispiness of this. Let's say you want, let me bring this down. I could at least zoom it down. I'm not going to change the file size. So this is the nice crispy lily. Let's say you want to have it more faded. First thing you want to do, save as. Well, this opened up in Paint. I don't want this to open up in Paint. I want this to open up with my Microsoft Office Picture Manager. Oh, hold on a second. Or whatever image editing software you have. I'm using Microsoft Office Picture Manager on my system, but open with whatever. There's different reasons to open stuff up in Paint, but at this junction I'm going to use Microsoft Office Picture Manager. So open with the Picture Manager, and there it is. And I want to save it as another version before I make any changes to it, or I may alter the original and then I'll be annoyed. So let's save as first. Okay, so it's in box. Now I'm going to save it as Lily. Now I already have a Lily whitewashed saved, so instead of Lily WW, I'm going to say Lily WWW, 3 W's, because it has to have a unique file name. Otherwise I'll overwrite my first whitewashed image, and I'm just showing you this as an example so I have a third Lily picture. Lily www.jpg, save. Now look down here in the lower left hand corner. You see that you're still in lily.jpg. You do not want to stay here or you're going to alter your original crisp image. So you want to get out of that. As you can see now, I have my original lily.jpg, my Lily whitewash, lily.ww.jpg, and then I'm going to show you how to whitewash this with a lily www.jpg. So now we're going to right click this and open with Microsoft Office Picture Manager. Okay, now look down here at the left. Okay, now we know we're in the correct file so that we're not going to mess up anything that we've already created for ourselves for example purposes. So go to Edit Pictures, go to your brightness and contrast. Now, you can mess around with your brightness if that's one way that you'd like to whitewash your pictures, but I personally didn't like any of those effects. So let's hit the undo, go back to the original. Contrast is my preference, and of course if you go to the right you're giving it more contrast. If you go to the left you're giving it less. Now this is the whitewash effect that I liked. I'm going to go to a really seriously whitewash, like you could barely see, and there's these numbers over here that you can increment a bit at a time. So I'm going to go to -80 on my whitewash here for the lily www.jpg. I'm going to save it. Okay, now when I go to my box, you can see my original lily, my lily WW, and my lily WWW, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I believe my WWW lily is even more whitewashed than the middle one. Now, if you're going to whitewash your background images, get all the images that you're going to use for your project and whitewash them all at the same time so that you use that same whitewash increment over here. Otherwise, you're going to forget what number you went to, and as I showed you, I went to -80 here. That way, when you open up all the other ones, you can really, instead of playing around with the slider, you can just go straight to -80. Now, this, if I go to -80 right now, it's going to whitewash this based on what it is right now, and so let's hit -80 just to show you. You really can't see hardly anything. So this is a great tool if you want to fade all your images to the same amount. Okay, so let's see. I showed you how to fade it using Microsoft Office Picture Manager. Whatever uh, picture editing tool you have, the key is playing with your contrast. Now, this has midtones as well. You may or may not prefer to play around with that to whitewash because it gives you a different effect. This is much brighter. You know, you can whitewash it with the contrast and then you can mess with the midtones too if you want. But whatever you do, to try to be consistent across all your different images, um, you know, so that you don't make your site look too weird. So let's get out of this. Again, this is my box with all my images. So if you have a single folder called box, you may want to have more folders inside of here. For instance, here, these are all my external web pages. And if I right click this, I can hit new and folder and then just create this called pages, web pages, or just pages. But I'm not using that right now. Right now I just have a folder called box and I have all my contents mixed up. I've got my CSS files here, bitmap files up here. Down here I've got a bunch of JPEGs. Here I've got all my MP3 files. And down here I've got the MP4 files that I was showing you that the C# professor provided for his lectures. And then I've got a ping file way down here. If you are grouping your folder like I am, you right click when you're inside of the folder and you could hit sort by. I have sort by type and right click again and group by type. I decided to sort by type and group by type because it makes it easier for me to have like files in the same section here. Here's my Firefox HTML documents, here's my JPEG files, yada yada yada. If you don't organize your files in a folder, it'll be a hot mess scrolling up and down looking for what you're looking for. Okay, so let's see, what else did I want to talk about? So I went over how drop-down lists are nice, and multiple drop-down lists working exclusively is nice to bring in lots of different types of information on one single landing page. I showed you the different background images that you can use for various web pages and how nice it looks if they're crispy. And if you think that that is too busy and you want to whitewash it, let's look at the whitewash version. So I would go to my chapter 1.html, my background URL. This is how you have a background image on your page. In body, you have your margin set to 0 pixels auto, your padding set to 0 pixels, and background is set to URL. And in the parentheses, you have the path to your image. Since I'm not using multiple directories in my box folder, I can just put the name of the image, so plant.jpg. Then I have center/cover, and after that I have background attachment is set to fixed. And fixed keeps it in place while you're scrolling all your information. Instead of the background scrolling with your stuff, it stays fixed. So I have whitewashed images as well. So my original is plant.jpg. My whitewash I renamed plant.ww, obviously for whitewashed. So it's very easy for me to move from one type of image to the other, the original and the whitewash. So chapter 2, I got to do the same thing. Cone flowers, www.jpg. Chapter 3, lily, www.jpg. Chapter 4, willow tree, www.jpg. Chapter 5, lots of flowers, www.jpg. Chapter 6, gravel, www.jpg. So now I'm going to hit save all in my Notepad++ and go back to my original landing page. Go to the front, and then this first tab, it's for chapter 1. Refresh the page. That's what it looks like with a whitewash. You may like one effect over the other, but I'm showing you how to have that option. Here's the crispy one. Here's the whitewash. Crispy, whitewash. And the pause that you're seeing is because all of my images are not resized to a smaller file size. So they're like, you know, over 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels. If you want this to load up quicker, then reduce your file size. But if you reduce your file size too much, it'll load quicker, but you will have a more blurry image. Of course, now I misspelled something for chapter 5, so I'm going to have to go back and see what I misspelled. But let's check out chapter 6. There's the original crispy, and there is the whitewash. So let's check out why chapter 5 is not showing us an image at all. So let's see, chapter 5. Lots of flowers, www.jpg. Go in my box. Okay, because I saved lots of flowers www as a bitmap here. And because I have my folder sort by type and group by type, this isn't down here with all the other JPEG images. So I just assumed that my naming convention was .jpeg, but it's actually .bitmap. So let's change that misspelling here. Lots of flowers, not .jpeg, but .bmp. Now let's save it, and now I should be good. So let's refresh that chapter 5 page, and there we have it. So these are all faded, whitewashed images, which puts more attention on your text. It's just a different way to design your pages. What else? There was something else. Oh, using paint to color match. I've had that in videos before too. You can use your original image to color match, or you can use your whitewashed image to color match. For instance, here you can see this is a deep pink. I'm not sure if it was a color matched or not, but now that I have this whitewashed image, you might want it to match better instead of being this bold. Personally, it's good to have a high contrast with text over background image, but I'm just going to show you how to color match, even though I've done this in previous videos. This is the background image that you've got. On your keyboard with your left hand, hold down the CTRL, which is your control key, and with your right hand go to the top right of your keyboard, and I have a print screen button. So I'm going to hold that in. Now both of them are held in. Now let go of them both. So we have control print screen. It has saved this image on a clipboard. Go ahead and enter your paint, and when paint opens, you're going to control V to paste it in. So with your pinky, hold down the control key on the bottom left, and then with your pointer finger of your left hand, hold down the V button. Now you have pasted it in, and you can let go of both fingers now that you've pasted it into paint. Now you have that into paint. Go to your eyedropper and pick something that you want to color match. So let's go to this faded part of this petal. Click it. So as you can see, that's a very unique pink. That's not just PINK pink. That is a definitely different shade of pink or hue of pink. So go to Edit Colors, and that will show you the red, green, blue value here at the right. And that's what you're going to use to color match. So we are in Chapter 2 linked lists, which I know because I happen to be using the drop-down list, which again, the drop-down list is great because you get at a glance exactly where you're at to refer to what page you're at. So I'm on Chapter 2, so I will go to my Notepad++ and open up my chapter 2.html. And what I need to do is, what element am I changing? Well, in this page, this is the first field set and the first legend. So I'm going to change the color of my legend. So when I go here, I want to look in my style tags of chapter2.html webpage and look for my legend element, which is right here. Now the current pink that I have right here is an RGB with 181 red, 74 green, and 149 blue. I want to take this whole thing, copy that line, and then go underneath it and paste it. And I want to Z out, which is misspelling the first color, and I'm going to keep this one not misspelled because this is the one I want to execute. Open my paint back up, and 160, 130, and 154 are the numbers I'm going to change. And I can minimize this so that I can see both at the same time. So now instead of 181 for red, I want 160 for red. instead of 74 for green, I want 130 for green. And instead of 149 for blue, I want 154 for blue. All right, now I'm going to save my Notepad++, go back to my page, and refresh the page. And as you can see, this is more of a gray pink. It's more of a grayed out pink because our contrast, I believe, actually blended some gray into the background to give it that whitewash effect. Now, you can do this color match for anything you want. This is a very easy way to color match, and if you wanted a little darker or a little lighter version of that color match using paint, you can use this little slider up here to make it brighter, or I should say whiter, and then down here it's a blacker, darker, blacker version. Of course, we don't want to go blacker. You won't be able to see the text at all because this legend has a black background. So you would possibly want to go lighter. And let's go with this one, 189, 168, 185. And that will make this brighter. $189, 168, 185. 189, 168, 185. Whoop, 5. Save that, go back to your page, refresh it. Does that even look like it changed? Huh, that didn't look like much of a change. Let me go even brighter. Pretty soon it's going to look white instead of pink. 221, 210, and 119. 221, where's my comma? 221, 210, and 219. Alright, now when I click refresh, this should look brighter, almost white. So, honestly, I don't really like any of those versions of pink. I really preferred that it have more of a standout. But, just for showing you how to color match and how you can make it a brighter, a lighter, or a darker color match version, you can do that. But I'm going to stick with my original because I just like it so much better. The contrast is prettier. So it just depends on if you're trying to wash out text or if you're trying to, and it's not just for text. I mean, you color match for borders. You color match for backgrounds. Right here, this has a white background, but what if I wanted to color match this to part of the petals or maybe even this cone part or whatever. So color matching makes your web pages look a lot nicer than just using your typical pink, red, green, blue, primary colors. Pink is not a primary color, but you know what I mean. Okay. Basically using red, green, and blue will give you a much wider range of colors than just the words blue, green, gray, purple, and so on and so forth. Alright, we don't need to save this. We only used paint to color match, so we don't need to save it. And what else do I want to go over? That's pretty much it. I just wanted to reinforce the fact that drop-down lists are a way to bring in lots of different types of information on a web page project. You don't have to get too technical with navigation, but one thing that navigation needs, in my opinion, is a way to have a lot of information but not take up too much space on your landing page. And this is a great way to do it. I mean, technically, if you're taking a college semester and let's say you're taking 5 classes, you want to have notes for all 5 classes in one interface. You see there's 3 drop-down lists here. You could probably fit 2 more on this page if you condensed the names here, because your drop down list is going to be as wide as the longest option that you have. So if you wanted to fit 5 on this particular page, you would want to take this long option and break it down a little bit. Maybe you just say inheritance /polymorphism 2, and that would shorten this greatly and give you more room for other drop down lists here. Maybe you wouldn't even put the word lecture 12, you might just put the number 12, because that would shorten it as well. As you can see in the web development drop down list, all of these are very short. This one doesn't have to have the word last class in it, and this thing up here doesn't have to be this long either. You could just say pick or choose in this particular section, and that would make it even more narrow.